Good morning, this is Cassie and John, and we're really sad to be missing all of you today, but we wanted to take a few minutes and tell you a little bit more about our own inquiry project.
So, as we noted in Part A, one of the focal questions that we were interested in asking were understanding in what ways do prospective teachers make sense of new literacies and the assets of persons, communities, and cultures of difference in a literacy methods course. Given our sort of focal interest in teacher activism, culturally linguistically diverse students, as well as sort of the technology and new literacies approach, this led us to ask questions such as, in what ways, if at all, are topics of difference and diversity taken up and made visible in the prospective teacher's coursework and assignments? For example, we were really interested if in sort of the first week in asking questions of culturally sustaining difference and funds of knowledge and literacy sponsorships, if those sort of modes and means of initiating student responses would be taken up in some of the lessons in 405. We were then interested in thinking about how prospective teachers then reconceptualize or remediate or reimagine school-sanctioned literacies. How do what we do in 405, how does that process of imagining new literacies as part of a literacy-centered course think and reimagine the type of school-sanctioned literacies they think are possible as they move on to the internship year. And then finally, thinking about sort of the structural tensions and the institutional and the individual dilemmas that happen when you think about culturally linguistically diverse students and culturally linguistically diverse communities in sort of the greater East Lansing and Lansing area, and how sort of these tensions and competing values aren't easily resolved in prospective teachers' classrooms.
So for our inquiry project, we're going to be focusing on 4 students, 2 from my course, which is a non-urban ed section, and then 2 from John's, which is an urban ed section. And we'll be looking at one assignment, which is the differentiated instruction lesson plan in particular, because of its focus on the inclusion of culturally and linguistically adaptations, I guess, as well as new literacies as well. So some of the different readings that we've been looking at, for myself, I've been trying to build my knowledge base in terms of new literacies, looking particularly at this piece by Brian Street. So I'm going to walk you through some of the different items that I took away, and we'll go from there. So I wanted to share a couple of different quotes from the text, starting with the argument of the analysis of the relationship between orality and literacy requiring attention to wider parameters of context, largely underemphasized in Anglo-American linguistics. I wanted to include this because of the literacy practices being socially embedded and knowing that it's more than just decoding at words, but actually asking us to go beyond these concepts of orality, as in the early works of Walter Ong and Goody, and looking at literacy practices as being diverse, and we must let go of these fixed notions that we have then of good reading and writing beyond technical skills. Moreover, he focuses a lot on the ideological principles that exist and the power structures and struggles that are within this and how prevalent they are within literacy. I wanted to make sure that in our own research, the implications that this has is that we have to see our own ideologies within this research and consider the different avenues that we can approach our work, knowing that.
So I took a glance at a couple of the empirical pieces that look at focal teachers trying to enact a new literacy stance. So the first piece I looked at, and the one I'll sort of present here today, is by Bailey. It makes it more real, teaching new literacies in a secondary English classroom. So a little bit quick about the piece. It was a single study case design where Bailey uses an interpretive stance to analyze and explain the literacy practices that she sees in a teacher, Carol's classroom. Bailey was actually the instructor of Carol, so she was not only a participant observer, but also had this very interesting power dynamic of a new literacies expert. Bailey's questions revolved around, thinking about how an English 9 teacher changed her teaching when she adopted a new literacy stance, and then what kind of literacy learning resulted when that teacher integrated new literacies into the English 9 curriculum. Some of the major findings that I took away is that, Carol took this stance as a new literacies teacher, but in this stance, she only saw the new literacies operating as a hook to her lessons and not actually at the sort of bulk of what she taught. Additionally, students in interviews with Bailey made more connections to literacy as they sort of saw how new literacies were so more socially and situated in their everyday life, and they made these types of textual connections to their everyday practice. So thinking a little bit about implications for the inquiry project, I'm really interested in incorporating this idea of stance. And stance is sort of a sociolinguistic perspective on sort of attitudinal disposition and value. And you look at discourse, and because some of the data that we'll have looks primarily at Facebook and at their dialogic journal, I think stance is one of the items that we probably could sort of illuminate for readers of our inquiry project. And then I'm thinking about, are there moments of culturally sustaining pedagogy in this differentiated instruction lesson plan? And how do students, account for culturally linguistic students in the incorporation of a new literacy, right? And then finally, how can we value and record the processes of learning versus the completed outcome of the assignment? I think that this project in particular will sort of document the process of learning, of what it means to take on both a culturally sustaining and new literacy stance as a teacher, and that won't necessarily come to fruition in the products. So Cassie and I are really working to sort of think about in what ways can we document the process as a way to sort of garner data in terms of this idea of stance. With that, we hope you have a great 994 class and have a wonderful spring break.
Yay!
Bye.